What's up, nerd fam? Make sure you join the Discord where you can ask questions, suggest content ideas, and I don't know, just show off your reptiles. Or, I don't know, roleplay as Pat Sajak, like this freak. I guess you could do that if you want. And like this video, guys, and subscribe, of course. I'm sorry for all that.
Alright guys, I'm going to teach you something that many people overlook. You've just got your new reptile, and now what? So once we get the animal, unpacking it, and what we need to do is we need to create a transition environment to get that animal from where it was, whatever breeder or dealer, where it was, where the animal is being successful, now into your care, where you're also successful, but ultimately getting into that awesome tricked out planted vivarium or whatever. And I want to teach you how to do this because a lot of people are making mistakes. Lots of predatory animals are super intelligent. Well, did you know that, let's say I breed these monitors, and I pack it into a bag, and I put it into a box and heat pack it, and then it gets shipped, hopefully in 24 hours. It gets shipped. That's high stress. I can take this wonderful, sweet animal and make it a ding-dong. So if I'm selling a socialized monitor, so socialized essentially means, it's friendly. It's so trusting of humans, it realizes that people are not going to hurt it. But I have a snake or a lizard in a bag. How to unpack it. So you want to, first of all, make sure you go into a room that's quiet. A bathroom. Don't have a dog running around. Don't have kids. Don't have any of that. You want quiet. Because remember, if it's a socialized animal or if it's an animal that has good behavior, it is decided that it can trust people. You're a new person. These animals are highly intelligent. They recognize you, smell, all the different stuff. So in a short period of time, this animal, if done correctly, can acclimate to people and actually get to know you. And once the animal gets to know you, it trusts you, it remains in thinking mode. So first thing here, got this actually in this case, it's a lizard. Put my hand in here. Going in there.
You're just gonna put your hand in there? What if you bought a lizard that's maybe not chill?
Then you can go and look, but I'd still pretty much do it. Okay, so what I do, I go in there and I'm letting the animal get on to me and on its own terms. So then, this is all good. So what I've just told this animal, it's okay. You don't have to worry. So take it nice and slow. I got monitors going down my pant leg. All right, so nice and slow. So there's not a lot of tongue flicking going on right here. I want to activate the tongue flicking. He's worried about the camera. I'm petting the tail. Okay, very important. So the first 5 minutes can be critical. I don't care if this is a bearded dragon, this is Dracaenas, a caiman lizard, this could be a reticulated python, all these different things. We want to get them to realize that they're okay. You're just a little brat. Imagine if this animal, if I don't take this out right, and this animal goes dashing off, and then I have to hunt it under something. When I do that, I put this animal through a whole prey experience where the animal becomes prey. So this is really critical. I'm working on this 5 minutes. Just sit here, work on this animal. I don't care if it's a leopard gecko, if it's whatever. You need to convince it that it's okay. But you have an animal like this that is so acclimated to humanity. This is like 6th generation water monitor. This thing is just a doll and it's just having fun. So this animal now is going to start, think about it, warming up to you. Swarming up to you, getting to know who you are. And all your interactions after are going to be like that. So another thing, don't take this animal and put it in this new enclosure down low. You want to get it up by chest height or above. Things towering over your eyes. Your eyes on this animal can be incredibly worrisome to an animal like this. Okay, so the next thing, now you've unpacked and you've examined your animal. Give it a good once over. Take a look at it. Eyes shiny and bright, is it in shed, whatever, does it have mites, does it have mouth rot? Sometimes animals, certainly reticulated pythons, they like to push in the bag, so they'll get a little mouth rub, and it's not really necessarily a big deal because reticulated pythons have an incredible ability to heal. But you want to look for any kind of respiratory bubbling, gaping. Remember, shipping process is incredibly stressful. So you may see an animal that's going to go through a little bump where it's really stressed out. But if you set it up right and you give it the basic husbandry, so we're going to be worried about temperature, humidity, but more importantly, is the enclosure making the animal feel safe? And we're going to cover that in a second. But first thing, look at your animal over. You feel good? If you have any questions, maybe that's the time to, obviously contact the breeder or the reseller. Just maybe make a note of it if you're worried about something, or in some cases, maybe it's not the animal that you thought you bought. All right, I'm going to show you a simple monitor cage that actually will allow things to be successful. See right here? So I have water, hiding, basking, and then I end up you're giving the animal what it needs. And it also makes it so I can go and interact with this little gem. That's a het ivory. Hi, baby. And it works. I give the animal what it needs. If I take this and put it into too big of a cage, oh my goodness. The stress that it causes the animal, and I'll fail. So if I go like this, oh, what's going on, little cute little babies? They get attention every single day. And it allows me to have wonderfully social cuties like that. All right, this next snake is notorious to suffer stress when we put it in a bag. So I produce these, but as soon as I put them in a bag, I put these guys on high alert. They're unfamiliar with this. They freak out. They get a little bit upset. Here's one little trick. Donnie, do you know why I fold over this snake bag instead of just putting tape around the collar? This prevents snakes, when you ship them, to stick their head deep into the collar, and sometimes they stick their head in there with those like zip ties, and So, all right, once again, Grand Anaconda, so what you can do. If I just go in there and just throw it on the floor and expose it, all of a sudden it's like, what's going on? It's way too much for it. Take it slow. Take a sec. So right here, sit here, peel it back. Okay. So what I'll do, put my hand in here. And what we're trying to do, once again, this animal is very worried. Hi. So this animal, I can tell right off the bat, is going into a shed. That's a green anaconda. You can see the eyes are opaque. Okay, so now what I want to do, I want to win the animal over that it shouldn't be terrified. Okay, so I can look at this animal. This animal looks great. Tell you a little funny story. I had somebody get a little boa, little Sonoran boa, and it was awesome, perfect, ate frosted rodents, and sent out the animals, perfect. We soak our animals before they go, so they get good drink, they're not dehydrated. But we're using these small little shipping boxes because shipping's really expensive when you put a heat pack in there. Well, if maybe your shipment gets delayed and you got this 60-hour heat pack in there, and God knows where the box goes, sometimes the heat pack heats the box up too much and that animal gets too hot. So the animal got too hot because it had been delayed for an extra day. When the animal came out of the box, its head's lolling all back and forth. It looks dehydrated because it's been frying with this heat pack. And it really took a beautiful looking animal and it made it like that animal was like a total mess. So you always want to, think, has it been, extra delay shipping? Because you can take a beautiful animal, put it in a box, and maybe it doesn't come out so beautiful because there's been problems. Shipping is incredibly complicated in some cases. How to manage the temperatures, when's the best window. Certainly when it's getting cold like it is now, very, very tricky. Now you have an animal that does not like to be shipped. So distrustful, the animal's in shed, so it's not seeing very well. I keep everything slow. See how I'm holding it and supporting it. Well, the next thing, so I look at the animal, looks really good. I'm really happy with it. I'm rubbing his head. We got some good tongue flicks. Okay, animal's thinking. I like it. What's the next thing? Do we start running around with it? Do we start showing it to little kids? Do we put it near a dog? Things running around? Because remember, this animal does not know your environment. My building is a reptile environment. It has high humidity. It reeks of reptileness. Everything about it is reptile friendly. So the next thing I want to do, I've looked at it, I want to actually get this animal to settle in. I have to put it in the proper cage. Well, I have a 4-foot cage, tricked out, There's branches everywhere. There's wonderful mulch. There's a pool. All that different stuff. I'm just going to take this animal and put it in there. Is that a good idea? No. First of all, what happens if the animal had mites? Right off the bat, we want to kind of put it through a little simple quarantine process, get to know your animal. But more importantly, if the animal is still fantastic and there's nothing wrong with it, I still don't like that setup. Even though that setup is aesthetically pleasing and I think that's the best thing, that is not necessarily the best thing, and I strongly urge you don't do that. Let's do the transition. Let's be thoughtful. I like to put it in something that's a little bit more geared towards the needs of the animal. It's not about what we think the animal needs. The animal knows what it needs. We need to give it what it needs. So I'm going to show you a basic setup that is actually very successful, but we're going to use this to transition to that awesome big vivarium that we all dream about. Because let's face it, we want to go into a room looking at these planted vivariums where there's all these knickknacks in there and it looks really good and real natural. We all like that. But the keepers that really are successful with that, they don't just take an animal and just magically expect them to go in there and everything's great. So I'm going to show you one little way to do this. So now we have a cage. I like paper. So let's say the snake had mites. Let's say the snake had anything. Paper is clean and neat. This goes into a rack system. There is heat. Underneath this is in the rack, there's a heat tape. So it's going to create a 92 to 94 degree hot spot. My ambient temperature, all else in the cage, is 82 to 84 degrees. Ambient humidity is easily 60%. So I have an anaconda. Anacondas do really, really well when we put them on paper and some moss. So I take some moss right here, right there, and then I take a hide box. And what I'm doing, I'm trying to attract this animal to the hot spot. And that animal is going to seek out that little secretive place. And then we're going to take this animal, and this animal will do really, really well because it's kind of like the whole enclosure is smaller, where it gives the animal security, because the walls, everything coming close where that animal can jam itself into a little place, they love that. That's what these guys are all about. And that anaconda will do far, far better with that temperature, with that humidity, with all that in this rack system. And then I put water right here, and it does really, really well. If this cage is too big, guess what happens? We put this animal into a stressful situation. A lot of times, I think one of the first things, it's going to fail. It's going to start doing things. Its behavior is going to start becoming sporadic and strange because it's stressed out, it's not comfortable, it's worried. Will it eat? Okay, you've just got your new animal. Well, first of all, the snake's shedding, so do not attempt any feeding. Secondly, well, I got a snake, it's got really good weight and everything like that. So clearly, the person that had this animal before, it was feeding, it grew, all that different stuff. So make sure you note that. That animal, when it came to you, look at the condition of that animal. Obviously, that animal was doing quite well. You need to continue that, and that's why you need to be able to understand this transition. So now I've got this animal. Let's say it wasn't shedding. Should I try to feed it? No, absolutely not. You want the animal to settle. You want it to make it so it understands where its environment is, days of quiet, everything's good, and it's going to start looking around. I might take a week to try to feed it. If you're going to try to feed it within a couple days, so a lot of times you can actually scare the animal. Now the animal goes into this very shy mode, very reserved, and it freaks the animal out. And you don't want to just tragically take that animal from one environment where it's successful, put it to this totally new environment, and then hit it with all this information. It's too much. Give this animal a chance. Get a chance to calm down. Guess what? I'm trying to get a cage prepared for the next arrival. And this animal, this species is notorious for being worried. And you'll get an animal that clearly healthy animal. So here we have a T-negative albino goldeneye also going into a shed. Okay, look at this animal. There's a lot of weight to this. Clearly this animal has some age to it. So I'll tell you another story. I had somebody that got a T-negative albino blood python, a wonderful animal, bigger than this, very fat and fantastic. They got the animal, within a few days tried feeding it. It didn't want to eat. They set it up their way, regardless of what I say, and they continue to send us emails. It's 5 days. It hasn't eaten. It's 7 days. We're trying to tell them stuff. So here's a huge problem people do. When the breeder or the reseller or the dealer tells you about the animal, a lot of times people will hear the words but disagree with some of the information that they're hearing. So what they do is they disregard what the person's saying, and they're always going back to what they think. But maybe eventually what they think is actually wrong. And you really need to trust the people you're getting your animal from. If you're sending money and you're getting an animal, you have to really give them the benefit of the doubt if these people are good. And really developing a relationship with, buying animals willy-nilly all over the place, you're going to set yourself up for failures. So that animal I sent out wouldn't eat 5 days later, wouldn't eat 7 days later. Guess what they did next? They brought it to a vet and they started poking it and prodding it and terrorizing it. That animal didn't do well. Well, I didn't force feed that animal its life. It was a wonderful, fantastic animal, but the person didn't set it up right. Their care was wrong, but you couldn't communicate with this person. And guess what they did? They ultimately euthanized that snake. You might have the big, beautiful vivarium where this animal's ultimately going to go, but believe it or not, the transition to something like this with clutter and safety and warmth and quiet is really the best thing to do. So this animal will thrive in this cage. Literally putting it in here, plenty of places to hide. Got this wonderful My Freedom Breeder drawer. Many people don't realize that rack systems, you think, oh, rack system's really small. It's a lot of bad things about it. There are a lot of good things about it, because remember, let's think about what animals need and what animals want, not about my version of what they should have. Ultimately, that's fine. But if you want success, certainly managing many, they need to feel secure. You need to nail all the basic requirements: the proper heat, the humidity, safety, comfort of the animal, and reduce the stress. So the last two. So now we start talking about a couple snake species that require finesse, a little bit more finesse, understanding them. Dickering with them too much will cause stress. You'll stop getting them to eat. They might not function well. So let's take a look right here. So here's our Boega setup. So this is a little mangrove snake. So right here, what these guys will do, they like to live in a humid area, but they want to come out and lay on things that are dry, and they dry out. So this little guy is highly nocturnal. Those big eyes right there. Hi, buddy. So little nocturnal snake right here. Very, very wary, very defensive. See right here. Let's make a little hide box right there. Animal goes in there. It will visit it. When it feels really comfortable, it's going to come out, and it's just going to lay out here, and it's going to dry out. So this animal ate last night. So here you go. You can see bolus. Little food right there. So this little setup makes this animal very happy. These little things like this, clutter is some of the success to a lot of these animals. Obviously, keeping clean. Well, if I try to feed it in the middle of the day and it doesn't eat, it's the breeder's fault, or it's the dealer's fault. It's always their fault. And then I put it in this cage and it's just empty paper, or it's a bunch of wet bedding and it gets too wet. That animal's going to die, even though that animal succeeded to this point because I did not know the species well. I was failing at husbandry. If you fail at husbandry and you misidentify a proper setup, which is often the problem, the animal will suffer, it will fail to thrive, it will stress out, it will die. Whose fault is that? Is it the person that bred it? Is the reseller? Often it is not. Sometimes you can get something bad. But the first thing we need to understand is we need to problem solve. It's all about solving problems. That's what I'm trying to help you do. I do it all the time. I have a lot to learn. I'm still learning, always learning. These animals are cryptic. They hide a lot of different things. Sometimes they hide health problems. But I've learned a lot of stuff, and I like to teach you because I love animals. Emerald tree boa. Here's an animal. They like to eat. Maybe I'm going to feed it too big. I'm going to feed it too often. Maybe I'm not going to keep it too dry. I'm not going to give it access to water. All these things will cause that animal to fail. I want to handle a lot. It doesn't bite, so it's friendly. I can handle a lot. All those things are going to kill your animal. This animal survives, like I say, almost on neglect. Not dicking with a lot. This is a nocturnal species. During the day, they're going to sleep. Simple setup initially before you get it into the beautiful tricked out vivarium. If I want to get this animal to find food, I need a small enclosure that meets all the requirements that animal needs. Temperature, humidity, quiet, secure, cryptic, okay? So very easy to achieve. I got a little drawer. This goes into a rack that has heat in the back. I can take this and clean its cage. I don't need to peel it off the perch. I have a nice nylon perch. I got water. So easy access to water. If it can move back and forth on this perch length, the back of the enclosure is where the heat is. So if it wants to get more heat, goes to the back. If it wants to get less heat and wants to dry out or whatever, it can move forward. Then I add something like this because it wants to maybe hide a little bit. Now if I want to feed it, I can either cup a fuzzy and put it in there, or I can take out the water, which is generally what I do, and I put a little fuzzy in there and I leave it overnight. I'm feeding at night. It's a nocturnal species. Don't just, if I start entering food during the day, that actually can stress the animal out. So hopefully you've gotten out of this. You, as a keeper, to a new animal, you need to understand you're going to go through a transition, and you need to try to adhere to whoever you got the animal from for the basic setup ideas. Just try to mirror, try to duplicate their success. And a lot of times, people don't listen very well. And when you don't listen very well because you know it all or you're misunderstanding something, it ultimately causes a failure, and then they're blaming the person they got it from. People are calling me like crazy, bad-mouthing other people. I don't want to be involved in any of that. There's so many good keepers out there that are experts, that are just, they have such significant expertise, but if somebody gets an animal, doesn't set it up right, and keeps it improperly, then they go out and badmouth that person. That's not the seller's fault.
I gotta turn my camera on, dude.
You didn't turn your camera on.